Hello everyone. Today in this session we are going to start our chapter resources, which is class 8 geography's lesson, and we are going to talk about this in this session in detail. So let's begin today's session with what is resource. Now, the first question which you're gonna ask is what a resource? So, a resource is actually everything. Is actually every single thing which have a utility. I will tell you what a utility is. Which have a utility and which have a value. So what I just said, I said that a resource is everything which have a utility, which have a value. Okay, so what are utility and value? Very simple terms. Utility is actually something, it is actually which have some use. All the things which have some use means which are being used or which have some use is known for its utility. Okay, value is actually have value just like worth. Okay, it's just value, price of something. Okay, cost of something is just, you can consider the scenario under the value. Okay, let's take a very simple example. I'm using this duster and this marker. Now if I talk about this marker is a resource because this marker contains the utility, because I'm using right, which have some use for us and which have a value. Yes, I cost for it, so it have a value plus utility, so it is resource. Now I hope you understand what a resource is. But if you want to know what a formal definition of resource, so you will say that a substance which have some utility, which have some value, are considered to be resource. And examples in formal manner if you want to write. So examples also you can add for more advancement, and like even water, metal, wood, all these things, even pen, even air, so many such things. Even the t-shirt you are wearing is also a resource for you, because it's have a use, it's have a value, right? All these things, even this water you drink, this is like the elixir of life. Air which you breathe in, and wood, metals, pen from which you write in your notebook and textbooks. Even textbooks is a resource, you use them, right? So this is what a resource is. Now let's move further. Now we will talk about the different types of resources and we will deal with their examples too. Okay, so now let's talk about the types of resources. Okay, so resource actually classified on the basis of origin into two types, are only classified into two types broadly. Okay, into two types. And the first one is natural resources. Natural resources. I'm writing RE for resources. Second is man-made resources. Man-made resources. Natural resources and man-made resources. So let's talk about them. First up is natural resources. Natural resources are those resources which we got from nature. Natural. Talk this term, natural. Right. So you got nature. nature plus natural. We got them from the nature, so they are actually all the resources which are derived or driven from nature. If you talk about examples for the natural resource, this we just took in previous case, that the air which you breathe, the water and the elixir of life which you drink, the food you eat, and the wood you get from trees, and even the tree, plants, everything is a resource of natural kind. Okay, so now natural resources are also classified into two types. They are also classified into two types. What are they? First is renewable natural resource. Okay, so second is, I will tell you about this. Next is just added non-renewable resources, natural resources. Okay, so these are renewable natural resources, non-renewable natural resources. So let me go this side so you can see clearly. Renewable, these are those kinds of resources which, those kind of natural resources which can replenish or flourish very quickly, or very quickly means it take a very shorter time to replenish back. These are come under the renewable natural resource. Take an example. Thought about it. If I ask you, give me an example of renewable natural resource. Yes, one of it is water. Yes, water. We know that through the water table we all contain water. From the water cycle, first it got evaporate, then from the condensation it come down from the clouds, right, as the compressed. So water is an excellent example of renewable natural resource which can replenish back very quickly to us. Okay, so even all natural resources, like if we talk about resources, then more examples can pop out, like electricity use. Yes, widely using excessively, electricity is also a resource. Everything, right? The next is non-renewable natural resource. Opposite to renewable natural resource, which provides that these resources are those which we can't replenish back very quickly. It contains a long time, or even this is so long that we just conclude that they are non-renewable natural resource. Like coal, petroleum, natural gas are such kinds of resources which takes millions of years, which is not a lifespan of human beings. So we came that to non-renewable natural resource. Now I hope natural resource is clear to you. Okay, now let's move to the man-made resource. It's very easy, it don't contain any further division. Okay, so man-made resource. Man-made resource are those resources which actually man-made, are like made by humans or made by men. Okay, and these are just which have some origin from the nature too, but manufacture in industry, and then we got that by adding more value. So these are like the man-made resource. Like the paper, let's take an example like pen, paper, or electricity. Okay, like electricity is an example of man-made resource. So these are the types of resources, natural and man-made, and what are they we have talked about. At the end of session, we will also talk about few questions which are necessary from just a kind of whole recap of this chapter. Okay, last thing which you got is the conservation of resources. So I hope we have to erase this. Let me rub this all. Okay. So the conservation of resources. Now as we know, in this time, in this technology time, we are excessively without any care of the nature, we are using the resources, right? Like coal, for example, is a cooking fuel which we can use and excessively use as producing tidal electricity, tidal energy on, for producing and generating electricity for light our homes, streets. So these are actually very exhaustible natural resources. We have to conserve them. If they got exhausted once, we can't replenish back. As I told you, coal is an example of non-renewable resource. So we have to, what we have to do? We have to conserve them. We have to conserve them. Conserve whom? Resources. Okay, we have to conserve resources because they are very useful. Okay, there are few terms, and in question if come, what are conservation of resources? So conservation of resources actually is conserving resources for excessively using and using the resources carefully with time. Okay, and next thing which you got is sustainable development. Yes, next sustainable development. Let me raise. Sustainable development. Okay, sustainable development, it is actually nothing but it is like conserving resources for future, right? It is just, if you talk about what a sustainable development is, if question come, you have to write that it is a way from which we can conserve, means conserving resources for the further use in the future for next generation. Okay, this is called the sustainable development. So, and we have also noticed that conservation of resources, conserving them, whom? Resources, and the types of resources. So this is all about resource. Let's do a very quick recap. We know resources, everything which have a utility and value. It contains two types: natural, man-made. Natural are those which we derive from nature. Man-made are those which we made from the man or from the humans, replenished from human, like pen, paper, and these furnitures even are example of man-made resources. Conserving resources, we talk about, we have to conserve them, we have to recycle, reuse and reduce the use of them through these 3R. Next is sustainable development, which we have to conserve for the further use for the future. So this is all about this chapter, and now we had covered this chapter resources very quickly of class 8. So for watching this, thank you, take care, keep learning and stay safe.